All righty. Well, good afternoon, everyone. As everyone is getting settled and getting ready to get started, and you're putting where you're coming from and you're excited about serving your non-congregate meals this summer, go ahead and put that in the chat. And we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we've got folks coming in from all parts of the country. So thank you so much for sharing your information. We'll go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us today for the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices Summer 2024 Rural Non-Congregate webinar series. We're excited to share the series that will cover a variety of topics, ranging from policy overviews, implementation strategies, and success stories that we hope you will find helpful. The session today is entitled Schools Bringing Summer Meals to Kids, Lessons Learned and Promising Practices for Non-Congregate Feeding in 2023. With that being said, this summer, school districts in rural communities have an opportunity to operate non-congregate models to better reach kids with healthy summer meals. Bringing these meals to communities has been proven through research and pandemic operations to be one of the best ways to expand access to summer meal programs in rural communities. There are many different ways to operate a mobile non-congregate meal program to best meet the needs of your individual community. Today, you will be hearing from three school nutrition programs who will be sharing wonderful resources and some of the lessons they've learned and some of the promising practices that they can share that will best help you as you are trying to inform the best way to plan your program for this coming summer. My name is Marissa Spady, and I'm a Senior Program Manager with No Kid Hungry's State Campaigns team, and I'm excited to be your moderator for today's overall program and webinar. A few things that we did want to make sure that you were able to know as you are joining us and spending the next hour with us is that we will be providing an overview and a copy of the webinar slides from today, along with the recording after the webinar. We are also committed to making sure that our webinars are also accessible and inclusive. Closed captioning is available, and you can turn that on at the bottom of your screen. I would highly encourage you to continue to use the chat box to engage with other folks who are joining us today, as we can cheer each other on and support each other as we try to serve non-congregate meals this summer. At the end of our panelists sharing today, we will have an opportunity for Q&A. Please be sure to submit your questions in the Q&A box, and we will get to those later on in our session. But for now, we'll go over our agenda very quickly. With that being said, I will be doing a brief overview of rural non-congregate summer meals from 2023 based on some of the things that we've learned from across the country this year. Then I will be handing things over to our school nutrition teams who are truly making it happen with the Rural Non-Congregate Summer Meals Program. You will hear from Lindsay Barnhill, Director of Nutrition Services at Paducah Public Schools in Kentucky. Then we'll turn things over to Peggy Hamby, Director of Food and Nutrition Services in Morgan County Schools located in Tennessee. And last but not least, Beth Brewster, Supervisor of Food Services in Caroline County Public Schools and founder of Chesapeake Culinary Center located in Maryland. Then we will wrap up with any moderated Q&A that you may have for our panelists as they go through their presentations, and we'll provide some resources as you are planning out your own program this summer. So with that being said, let's get started and talk a little bit about an overview of the Rural Non-Congregate Summer Meals program that occurred during summer of 2023. As some of you may know, advocates have long been working to advocate for greater flexibilities in the summer meals program to help meet the gap in summer hunger for our kids who may not have access to summer meals throughout the summer months. With that being said, back in 2010, Congress approved for the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act to allow for some summer demonstration projects, which included non-congregate feeding options. So over the next several years, several pilot projects were allowed for us to understand a little bit better about how a non-congregate option would work for summer feeding. With that being said, we continue to advocate for and push for additional opportunities for extending the summer non-congregate option. We know that when the pandemic hit in 2020, we were able to pilot some of those many options on a nationwide, widespread opportunity, and we saw that we more than doubled the amount of meals that were served. And then in 2023, of course, we were able to experience the launch of the rural non-congregate option. With that being said, you're now looking at a slide that shares the participation in the summer meals program from a national perspective. With that being said, you will see from July of 2016 to July of 2019, the average number of summer meals was pretty steady at around 95 million meals per summer. And of course, when COVID hit, we more than doubled that number, utilizing the opportunity for non-congregate meals nationwide due to those waivers. However, while we were tracking the number of meals that were served, we did notice a decline in meals that were served in 2023, even with the rural non-congregate option available. And that was available and varied from state to state. No Kid Hungry is still very much interested in learning where some of these increases and decreases may have occurred, and we are looking to do some more research. However, today we are very excited to showcase on a local level how some of our school sponsors who utilized these flexibilities last year showed huge increases in being able to reach children in their communities with the summer non-congregate option. Next slide, please. With that being said, here's an overview of how the USDA guidance has rolled out. In December of 2022, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 23 authorized permanent option for non-congregate summer meals in rural areas without congregate service. In the winter of 22-23 and in the spring of 23, USDA issued temporary guidance based on past pilots to guide summer 23 implementation in states that opted in. We know that many of us were on a short timeline to make that happen last summer. Then in December of 23, USDA issued its interim final rule, or IFR, establishing the summer EBT program and rural non-congregate option in the summer meals program. This took immediate effect to guide implementation for summer 24. Open for public comment until April 29th of this year to inform the future final rule. Our team at No Kid Hungry has had the opportunity to pull together the details of the IFR. And if you're looking for the top takeaways, there will be a 2-page summary of key points to focus on the differences between 23 guidance and current. So please make sure you take a chance to look at that. Next slide. With that being said, one of the greatest strengths of the non-congregate feeding programs that we've learned over the years is that the program provides flexibilities to communities to design programs that better meet the unique needs of each individual rural community. With that being said, we had the opportunity to really dig in to understand what sponsors experienced last summer through our No Kid Hungry grantees, as well as doing debrief sessions and surveys with our sponsors across the country. One of the areas of flexibility that we've seen the most variety, we might say, is that several of our schools operated grab-and-go programs. So the distribution models that were provided really varied based on what our sponsors were having the capacity to be able to serve. So we saw grab-and-go options that allowed for walk-up. We saw curbside drive-up. We also saw a few hybrid options where some of the congregate portion, while offering possibly a congregate breakfast, could send home a non-congregate lunch, or if congregate meals were served during the week, maybe they sent home non-congregate options to cover the weekends. With that being said, we also saw mobile meal options that would allow for meal sites to come closer to where families lived and worked, and were able to better access those meals in specific locations that were identified. Also, we saw a few home delivery options that really ended up taking those meals directly to the homes of those children in those communities. In reviewing the No Kid Hungry grantees from last year, we found that the distance to the site and the family's access to transportation were really the most significant considerations for why those distribution models were chosen for those particular communities. Next slide. With that being said, I will say I had the opportunity to visit quite a few non-congregate service models across the area that I live in, and was most impressed with the variety that we're seeing. A lot of it came down to what was the capacity and infrastructure that was available to the sponsors that were developing their programs, whether it was a school, a community-based organization, or whichever they were in whichever rural community that they lived in. I saw quite a variety for sure. With those flexibilities and whatever the capabilities were of that particular sponsor, I saw anything from a hot meal, a refrigerated meal, frozen items, as well as shelf stable. And sometimes I saw all four of those at one particular site. So with that being said, that also led to how were these packaged? How were they bundled? Were they bulk meal? Were they unitized? Were they in a box? Were they in a bag? Were they color coded? There were quite a few options, and people got very creative with making sure that families had access to these meals and made it most convenient for them to be able to participate. Next slide, please. Given all this multitude of choices in how to administer the non-congregate option, we saw many different logistical considerations, like I was just mentioning. And sometimes a lot of those came down to staffing and transportation. Unfortunately, we know that staffing challenges in communities across the country, they still are challenges for sure. Through No Kid Hungry granting, we did see the need for non-congregate sites to increase staffing as they expanded the access for families to be able to reach out and support those families. So that meant we would probably have to have drivers and site staff. We even heard of a couple of folks cross-training their staff so that whether they were the driver or they were the monitor, they could do both jobs and hand out meals. So not having two people on a vehicle, but just one who could do both. We also heard about the need and the opportunity for part-time support. You'll hear from some of our panelists in just a moment about how they were able to utilize the ability of part-time opportunities for staff. They were able to allow for staff to come and work maybe just one part. So we know that childcare can be a challenge during the summer months. And with that being said, people could sign up to do one particular area. Maybe it was packing, maybe it was cooking, maybe it was loading, and maybe it was delivery. Everybody could come in and do what worked best for their schedules, and that seemed to work well. We did see some grantees address challenges with increasing staff wages, providing extra stipends, and paying for additional staff to come in and cover those packaging of meals. We also saw a lot of people utilize teams as well as college students. They were able to get into their communities and recruit volunteers as well from local nonprofits and as far as places of worship, and also local businesses who were able to help out as well. With that being said, we know that from last year, as well as during COVID, we saw various approaches to transportation, because with the opportunity with non-congregate meals, transportation is now a possibility. So some folks were able to utilize vehicles that they already had and retrofitted those. They were able to purchase new items or vehicles that would best work for their situations. Others reimbursed staff for using their own vehicles. Some people rented vans, trucks, refrigerated trucks as a way to get meals from one part of the area to the other. With all of that being taking into consideration and identifying where the distribution points were going to be throughout their different county areas, they also had to take into account the amount of time people might be sitting in a vehicle, and what that meant. Do we have to worry about traffic patterns and the safety of folks driving around? We also had to consider weather conditions. Were we going to need to get tents and other safety features as far as that? Were sites clearly identified and signage very clear in multiple languages? Do we think about anybody that might be walking up? Do we need separate lines for that? So a lot of things to take into consideration when figuring out what's going to be the best option. And a lot of people having to pivot because the ultimate goal here is to making sure as many kids as possible have access to the meals. With that being said, next slide, please. We wanted to make sure that we were understanding that our caregivers' insights were truly taken into consideration when we were planning our summer meal programs. So we had the opportunity to take a team out to 3 various sites across the country, and at 3 different locations that provided 3 different non-congregate models, whether it be a grab and go, a mobile meal, or delivery option. We interviewed 30 caregivers, 10 at each site, about their experience when coming to the non-congregate summer meal program. After analyzing all of their responses from the interviews, one of the things, there were 3 really good takeaways that kind of bubbled up to the top. Number one was that participants really celebrated receiving multiple meals, whether it was for 2 days, 5 days, or up to 7 days. They were thankful to have not have to come out for every single meal being served. So multiple meals offered more choices and autonomy for those participate. They also resulted in greater food consumption. And there was more convenience for the families for them to be able to pick up the meals. And ultimately that resulted in happier kids and caregivers. The second takeaway was that participants preferred the delivery model. Delivery was the most accessible, convenient, and equitable model for participants. Home delivery enabled families and caregivers to participate regardless of constraints that would otherwise inhibit participation from the access of reliable transportation, a disability, needing to go to work, scheduling conflicts, or childcare. Next slide. And our final number 3 takeaway was that we need to continue as we're planning our menus and we're planning our process and our flexibilities we're going to utilize. The goal is that we can continue to improve how we communicate with families about the non-congregate meals. A few things that were shared was that families feel shamed when they inadvertently break rules they didn't know about. So some things that we need to think about are how can we communicate program rules and details ahead of time so families know exactly what to expect when they participate in our non-congregate program. Families would often prefer communication to come via text message, social media, or phone calls over flyers. So how are we utilizing those digital media outreach to get in touch with as many families as possible? And you'll hear a little bit about that from some of our panelists in a moment. Families also express concerns about taking food from others who might need it more. So how can we, as sponsors, dispel the idea that participation limits access for others and instead emphasize the benefit to the community? And sometimes participants felt welcome at sites, and unfortunately, sometimes they did not. So how can we ensure that our caregivers feel welcomed and respected when they're participating in our program? Because ultimately, if they are feeling welcome and they're being treated with respect, they're going to want to come back and participate more frequently. So how can we make sure that we are training our staff to treat everyone equally and fairly? With that being said, next up, I know many of you are in the middle of planning your summer meal programs and what that might look like in the next several weeks and months, about all the possibilities and the considerations that you are keeping in mind. At this time, I'd like to turn things over to one of our panelists, our first panelist, as they will share some of their experiences in the field. So first up, I'd like to introduce Lindsay Barnhill, the Director of Nutrition Services with Paducah Public Schools, located in Kentucky. Lindsay, feel free to take it away.
Good afternoon. It's Friday Eve, so it's almost Friday. We've almost made it. I just want to thank everyone for being here, because if you are here taking this time out of your day to listen to us, you play an integral role in either supporting someone or being that person who is going to ensure that kids are fed in the summertime, particularly to this subject. But I have a strong feeling that you care about it all the time. So I want to thank you for that first and foremost. I'm so grateful for the non-congregate option in summer 2023. So I'm hoping that will give us all lots of opportunity to reach more children and make sure that they're taken care of. If you can go to the first slide, please. Like Marissa said, I'm Lindsay Barnhill. I'm the nutrition director at Paducah Public Schools, which is in Paducah, Kentucky. You'll see that slide or that picture right there of Kentucky. We're right where Illinois meets Kentucky, far west, Quilt City, USA. Yay. I have been a nutrition director for 13 years. This is really all I've ever known so far in lots of different aspects, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve our community in that way. Our district size, we have one high school, one middle school, 3 elementary schools, and then we have actually a beautiful new Head Start facility that we just moved into on March 11th, and our enrollment is about 3,100 students. Last summer, we served 241,040 meals, breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack, primarily breakfast and lunch, and primarily grab and go. So I'll share more information on the next slide for that. But we had 20 plus sites with 11 mobile delivery sites, which means that they're non-congregate, and we drive around town to each place. One of those was our local library, which gave us a really nice opportunity for just kind of like Marissa said, the communication and normalizing that by fashioning the time to be more congruent with children's programs so that everyone would come out. The kids were super excited, and it was something that a large majority of our community participated in, and it was all sorts of demographics, excuse me, and socioeconomic status. So that was really neat, and it was kind of an activity, kind of like COVID. We took some of the positives from that, and they a lot of that was something to do while kids were at home. So, and still making sure that they had the opportunity and access to that nutrition while they were there. So we did that. We had 7 days of meals at any opportunity that we could. So that was another thing that we did to be sure that they had that opportunity and access, is to be sure that we included that Saturday and Sunday when we could. I know some of the regulations are kind of different with that, so we made sure that those were able to be utilized then. What we did was we made sure that breakfast and lunch was taken care of in that same place, which I know a lot of you are doing bulk in that regard too. But with that 740,521 meals, 132,438 were bulk non-congregate meals. So that in itself tells you what a huge chunk of our participation was for that. So if you would go to the next slide, please. I think I've kind of gotten ahead of myself, but of course, you can see the numbers in the chart there that 2023 was a huge opportunity for us to improve our access. And my staff took every opportunity to be sure that we were not doubling up. So I do feel very confident in these meals, in that that was something that we could definitely show. So 2019 was 47,108 meals, and 2023 was 740,521 meals. So that's a huge jump. So that non-congregate option, I could go on all day about the benefit of our non-congregate meal service. It's a huge opportunity, and I think that there are so many different options. Now, speaking to staff and communication, still again on that slide that you're on now, this is sort of the ways that we communicated to the community, times and places. We use social media. We use these infographics. No Kid Hungry provided multiple great text options, which our state took and utilized also. Community partners are huge. They are such an awesome resource to get the word out, also to communicate those changes, because communicating the changes is really, you're not going to have the staff that you need and the students for the participation communicate those changes ahead of time. So those are also very important. And of course, your team. That was also, I think opportunity might be the theme of my conversation right now. And that is that, we did utilize bus drivers during that summer program. We did, we had the opportunity to not only provide them with positions, but also to, in the summertime when they're not necessarily as busy, to let them also come and sub for us, or sign up to be nutrition employees, to make sure that we're expanding that opportunity for them too, for, staffing purposes. So. And that's all I've got.
Great. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for all of the insight on your non-congregate experience from last summer. At this time, I would like to turn things over to Peggy Hamby, the Director of Food and Nutrition from Morgan County Schools located in Tennessee. Thank you, Peggy, for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. And Lindsay, I'm always so inspired when I listen to you, what you're doing. But I'm like Lindsay, we're so excited that we did have the opportunity to do non-congregate. A little bit about our district is that it's a lot like the state of Tennessee. We're so stretched out now. And non-congregate allowed us to go from the east to middle west of our community. A lot of our families has to travel at least 30 to 45 minutes to get to a school. And there's not even a grocery store in a lot of that areas. The biggest thing we have is Dollar General, and that's where some of them gets their food. So given that opportunity, it allowed us to reach our kids. a lot more. We did the summer scores that everybody pretty much knew. We had four of our scores, and we have seven, but all our scores are pre-K through 12. So that tells you how small, in some ways, they are. And we have what's called Gusta Bus, and that is our mobile bus that we use not only to feed the kids, we did non-congregate and congregate on that bus. And that was set in place before the pandemic hit. And we did that because we needed a place for kids to come in. We had a lot of kids that did not have anywhere to sit to eat and lunch. We go to trailer parks. So with congregate, now we was able, non-congregate, was able to take our bus and utilize it. We let them come on and eat. But then in the areas that we couldn't reach before, we was able to load that bus up and go into the areas and provide the meals for them. So it gave us such a good opportunity. And we would do a combination of meals. We did family style meals, which we would do. We try to always do some hot and some cold. So if they came to pick up, we would provide them a meal that they could eat right then. That would be usually a hot meal. But then we did our freezer meals, which was great because that was the way we was able to use a lot of our commodities that we still had. We cleared out our freezers and our stock so that we could use it. I had one school that they're really out the boonies is what we call them, but everybody needs to work there, and it gave them opportunity. They would prepare the meals as a family style, and then they would do a half tray and seal it up, and then we would come and pick it up and distribute it to the other locations. So that worked out good for us. We did do some grab and goes. We did a combination, and it's one of those things. I think one size didn't fit all. Like we have Tent City where they don't have air conditioning, or they don't have electricity, they don't have water. So with that, we had to make sure that we had meals that they actually could eat. So that would be more of our stable. And so I think the idea is that you got to be able to be flexible, know your community, and figure out what best serves them. And we would try to always do the 7 days last year was available to us so that we would send them to breakfast and lunch. Like Lindsay said, it utilizes your labor, and it really didn't take that much more. And that way we knew they was taken care of. And we always start the day scores out to the day score starts because we know they need us. And we're just so excited that because when you looked at the map, we wasn't even supposed to be a rural. They didn't classify us on USDA. I'm like, how can you not be classified as rural? I mean, we're just really out there, no grocery stores and so forth. And so I tell people that is that if you see the map or something, request, and we did, and we was able to prove like, yes, we're rural. You know, we have rural programs where say the children's, and so don't think that, oh no, I can't do this. Always reach out to your state and request, because a lot of times they can allow you to do things that you think maybe it's not even possible. So next slide, you can look, when you look at this slide here, look at the difference of our growth whenever we're able to do non-congregate versus congregate. It's hard. You only have so many workers, and we had to load them up on a bus, and we load them in our cars and everywhere and try to get to our area, and we couldn't. But non-congregate made that possible. And it just warms my heart thinking that we was able to reach more of our kids and our families. And so we know they depend on us. Not only do they depend on us for their food, but they also mentally, I think, depend on us. That's a smiling face when they see that cafeteria person again. And they know that you care, that you're going out your way, that you bring the food to them, you sit upside. They do appreciate it. And if you look, you can see our breakfast and lunch is really high. And you look and think, well, my goodness, what happened to your supper and your snack program? Well, our supper program is our VBS. In the past, it was our churches that kept us alive, because they would come and pick up 100 or 150 or 200 meals so that we could go to these parks or to our trailer parks that maybe only we fed 10 or 15, but we knew they're 10, 15. And since the pandemic, we've had a lot of our churches didn't go back to that, having VBS and stuff. So that before we relied on them to reach our kids, now non-congregate, we're able to reach them. So it's just amazed me to think we went up to 229,000, and we're a small area that we have about 2,800 students. So the need is out there. Nance? One of the things that we love to do is you've got to plan, because it's just, you think about, okay, how can we reach the most? And it is, we always have a planning session, and I invite every church, every community leaders. I invite the politicians, our paper, all the different organizations in, so we can work together. We usually do that in January and February, so that we can sort of get a game plan, like how can we reach the most people. And that idea is sometimes like, oh wow, and we take the opportunity to let them understand our program. We do have guidelines, and a lot of people don't realize that. Oh, okay, we see why the meals consist of this. So it's a good time to promote your program, but it's also a good time for them to see we are meeting our requirements, and they're like, wow, we didn't know you was under such guidelines. And so the communication is so important, I think. And I love getting, like, this year is election year. So, a lot of politicians are involved because they know that if you want to reach a voter, you reach a child's heart, a family that's struggling. So it's good. And we do our menus, you can see, we do a combination, like Lindsay mentioned too. We do some grab and go, we do some curbside, we did the whatever meet that area. And you got to be flexible, you got to be able to change. For example, we was at one site, we thought we had to figure it out, and the police department came and said, oh my, our traffic is ridiculous here. We moved from that one location 4 places till we finally came up with a location that we all could manage. Because as Marissa mentioned, it is, sometimes you don't think about, you may have 200 cars in line. How are you going to get that? So that's why it's important to get your whole community involved, because they can outreach. As far as like with the police, they was able to help direct search. We had our city involved in it. They would come and help us hand out the food. So it's good to get everybody involved that you can. And I always, don't know about you, but I love free labor, so that's good. Next, please. So one of the things that we do is we always like to have a big summer kickoff. And this is the time that we get the whole community. If you look at the flyer on the right, this is some of the different programs that participated. And No Kid Hunger was out. They loved her, of course. But what we do is everything is geared for kids. It's all different ages. And we've already started. We have a spreadsheet. And so we encourage everybody. We have it at our city park. We don't charge for the setup, but we do have a couple of requirements. One is they have to be there and set up before time, 30 minutes before, and they have to stay to the very end. Third is they have to have some kind of hands-on activities for the kids. It may be a bounce house. It may be, we had where we get chickens from a local produce. They came and set up, and they gave away free produce. So really, it was very little work on me the day of. Most of it was just planning, reaching out to them. We give away freebies. We had a local radio station did a live broadcast, and so every organization got free radio time, and we let them know that. He walked around and talked with them. We had the rescue squad, the ambulance. It's just a great partnership with your community. And I love that. I love any time that we all can share and we have churches set up. There's so much that's going on that people don't know, and you can connect the food with it. And it's important for us to get it out there to them. Like, where are we going to be set up? So one way we do that is we have in May, we had what is called a glow party. We have purchased Frisbee, and we've done this for the last probably, I think, 7 years. And we do a Frisbee. And on the outside of the Frisbee, we have the main locations. You can't list all of them, but we have the main locations where they can come and get the non-congregate meals in that time that they can pick it up. And so during the lunch day in May, that is the lunch tray. We do a pre-wrap corn dog or sandwich or something that they can put everything on that Frisbee, and then they can take that home. And, like I think Marissa mentioned, is communication is so important. That is something that the kids is going to take home. They're going to play with that. We hand them out throughout any event that's going on at the schools or in the community. We let them have that because a flower gets thrown away, but a Frisbee gets used. And, nothing is more heartbreaking to think a family that's in need and they didn't know about your program. So we try to do that. We do provide cooler bags, and we got a grant money from that helped because we do have people that has to travel so far to get back home, and they come. So we try to do a cooler bag, and that's one of the places we set up was at one of the mom and pop little grocery stores we had there, so they could kill two birds at once. They could come and they could take care of their business, and then they could get a cooler bag with all of the meals with it and take back. So I am just so excited that we do have the opportunity again this year, and we use the school alert now. Whenever the day before it, we're going to have our non-congregate at that school we set up at our major school. We always do the alert now through the school system. Doesn't cost us anything. I have them pre-programmed at the beginning of the summer, and they go the night before to remind the parents. And one thing that we do is we offer theme days. We have themes where we would tell them this week we're having superhero day, and we would see kids will come dressed up when they come through. If they're dressed up, and if they come and pick up the meals at the non-congregate meal, we give them a special treat and use it so things that didn't cost as much. A lot of times they get donated by other community members. So I'm excited. I'm thankful that we've had this opportunity, and I never want to go back. I'm thankful that we're able to reach. And I always say, just don't, sometimes the thing is just to start somewhere. Don't think, oh, how am I going to get this? Don't be overwhelmed. Just start and let it grow. Consistency is important. Every year we try to keep, if it's a good site, we keep the same site in the same time so that the families get used to that year after year. I think that is going to be the key to go. But thank you. And
thank you, Peggy. That was wonderful. We are so thankful for all of the information that you just shared. And I see a few questions that we'll have for you at the end. But next up, I would love to introduce to you Beth Brewster, the Supervisor of Food Services from Caroline County Public Schools and founder of Chesapeake Culinary Center in Maryland, as she will share a little bit about her school non-congregate program. Beth, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Great. No Kid Hungry, thank you for having me today, and thank you for all the support over the years. I do appreciate it. Again, I'm Beth Brewster, Food Service Supervisor for Caroline County Public Schools. We're a very small county. Next slide, please. Very small county. We only have 9 schools. We're on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. We have non-congregate meals in all of in our whole county. And this is our logo that we started last year for summer foods. And this is our mission. Basically, we realized that we can't just take care of our kids during the school year, for breakfast and lunch, and that we really need to expand out what we do. So this is our mission, to create healthy, economically stable families through food equity, job training, youth prevention, economic development, education. We have a lot of programs outside of the summer meals. And that's one happy little girl right there. Next, summer meals in Caroline County. Again, we're district-wide. We just started community eligibility provision this year. We have 9 schools, 5,700 students. 10% of our families are in poverty. We also are have all non-congregate, as I said before. So summer meal delivery, we do it all. We have open sites. We have camps at all the elementary schools that we do a hot breakfast and lunch at. We also do door to door. At the end of the school year, we'll put out applications for parents to fill out if their child cannot get to a feeding site or if they are unable to pick up. And we do vet them. We see where the location is. Last summer, we went to 31 houses. We went twice a week to provide them with 3 days of meals each time. And then we also go mobile, and we'll see a little bit more of that, but we've been going into neighborhoods. We have a mobile curbside market, but we just got another refrigerated van this year to be able to go in to double what we're doing, really. So we go into trailer parks, apartment complexes, and then we hand out meals from there. The meals we do are hot. We do shelf stable meals, but we've been doing frozen meals. And actually, our culinary arts students have been putting those together. I just checked, they have 1,000 ready for this summer, so that our students just don't have to have shelf stable items. They can actually get a frozen meal that they can heat and to be able to have a hot meal. We'll do breakfast and lunch service, and the number of meals will vary. Some locations will do just one day, like the libraries, and then others will be doing 3 to 4 days, twice a week. So last year we did only 30,000 meals, and we did 11,000 on the mobile bus, because by the time USDA told us, we had a little trouble rallying, but we are definitely ready this year. Next, please. So this bus that you see, this bus actually goes out all year round. This is our answer to being able to service food desert areas. We got the bus donated from Maryland Department of Transportation. It was ready to be retired. It's a 14-passenger bus on a van chassis, so you don't need a CDL license to drive it. And that way my my staff would be able to take it out. We had several funders for this. No Kid Hungry was a major part of that. And they had a corporation that supported as well, matched the funds. But we also got it from Rural Maryland Council. That's our aggregation, that's our agricultural department, different foundations and private donations for the bus. It was about $20,000 to retrofit the bus. And then so we gutted the whole thing, put in generator, air conditioning, and those type of things. So you can see on one side we have fresh produce, and then on the other side we have the frozen meals that we sell, milk, eggs, and butter that we sell into the community. But then we also give free summer meals off of this bus as well. And you can see the processing the meals. My ladies there are putting together the frozen meals. We did that through the pandemic as well. So they're heat and serve and microwavable containers. And during the pandemic, what we had done was asked if people could actually heat up the meals. So we provided 3 households with microwaves to be able to do that. So we did our summer prep in our school kitchens. And then during the school year, the culinary arts class starts to put together meals for us as well, as I said before. We process about 10,000 pounds of local produce in the summer as well. That way we're serving farm to school all year long. Yeah, and we've definitely incorporated a lot of farm to school in our summertime meals as well. Next. Basically, why mobile? Really, we were talking about food desert areas, people having transportation, access to more nutritious foods, and that's why we decided to go into the neighborhoods to take this. So it not only does summer meals and goes into some of our out of the way places, but it also will go to subsidized senior housing because they can purchase the meals at low cost. We are getting SNAP to be able to use on the bus as well. And that will help a lot of people. We charge 5% over the cost of the produce. We work with our local farmers to put the food on it, but we also work with Walmart during the winter time when the farm stands are closed. It's been a local economic driver really for the region as well. And it really does help us connect with our community. My ladies on the bus, they actually got trained to be able to assist people with SNAP applications. And they're the ones that take out flyers to the people who aren't checking their emails or don't have access. So they take out flyers in Spanish and Creole and English to let people know the resources that are available in the community. But it's just been a great way, I think, for food equity and security in our region. And we truly feel that we are really getting to everyone in our county because it is so remote. We did farm scripts. We worked with our local Choptank Health, and the farm scripts they gave to the students, the kids that were in camps, to be able to go onto the bus and to shop. Really talking about food as medicine. So we always tell the story. One little boy got a acorn squash and was so excited. We were going to ask him what he was going to do with that, and he had no idea. But he goes, my mother will figure it out. But we had a recipe card for him to be able to do that. So next. And again, my big plug is community partnerships. We could not do what we do. We didn't have all of our partners in the community that were helping us. Again, I talked about Choptank Community Health. They actually will take their wellness van out and follow our Sure Gourmet bus to do wellness checks. It's been huge. Going to, if our people can't come to us, let's go to them. Salvation Army, we had one neighborhood that was kind of hard to get into for trust issues, and Salvation Army actually goes in on Thursdays with hot dogs, and they love them, and they said follow us in, so we followed them in, and now we have no trouble getting into that neighborhood at all. So we work with the health department, social services, our county government, Parks and Recreation, YMCA. We work with our pantries very closely. So it's just been the libraries. I mean, we've just had great community partners in this. Next, please. Thank you. And I apologize for being late to the meeting.
You're totally fine. Thank you so much, Beth, for making time to join us today. And thank you to all of our panelists who were willing to share their experience with rural non-congregate over the last summer. We do have a few questions that have come in, and one of those, or a couple of those, have centered around the use of, or what type of menu, and how did you choose your menu for your summer meals? If there's anyone that would like to take that one.
Well, I will. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Peggy.
No, go ahead, Peggy.
We do a combination because a lot of times I want them to be a meal that they're familiar with. That's comfort for them. So some of the meals we do is literally using our commodities that maybe came in April and we didn't get to use, or using what we already have. And when we do our commodities order, this year we're planning for that now too. But so we may do one may be we make spaghetti, and we take our half pans and we got spaghetti in there. Then we have green beans, and then we have the garlic rolls, and we seal it up just using the half pans, very inexpensive. And then we will mark on that so that when they come through the line, one family may get chicken Alfredo, one child may get chicken Alfredo, one may get the spaghetti, one may get the hamburger buns with the hamburgers in it, in the fries. So we always put directions on them. We have the cards made up that we hand out so that they can really, a lot of ours, they don't just have one kid. they may come in and have 3. We have several that have 6 and 7 kids. So we try to make sure they have a variety when they go. And it's worked out really good. And we always give them, we do a produce box is what we do. And so that using our DOD so that we can get each of the requirements in for the vegetables, and we hand that in. A lot of times we use our local produce. We had watermelon last year that was donated from a farmer in Cantaloupe too. So we try to do that. But that's not every meal, because some meals we may do, and we try to alternate it. So every week we let them know what's going to be up and giving choices and knowing your families. Sometimes then it may be a loaf of bread and peanut butter jar, peanut butter and so forth, because they don't have that refrigeration. So we have options out there, and when we go, you really get to know. You can look at a car after you've done it, and you really know, because it's like, oh, I remember them. So having a variety. There is some that just wants little grab and goes, where it's just I call them the pre-wrapped things that you make and you put it in the bag. But most of us love to have a whole pizza. We did that when I took everybody to the state, and we was low on labor. We would hand them a whole pizza that made the requirement, and then we give them the produce and the milk and juice, maybe. So
Great. Does anybody else want to share? If not, we have a few other questions. Oh, go ahead, Beth.
I will. We have not gone to the bulk meals yet, which we are entertaining. But we make sure that in that we have 3 or 4 day packs, that we have like a sandwich on there. But we are bagging fresh fruits and vegetables with it. So we have one team that's just bagging fresh fruits and vegetables, the 2 servings, the half a cup of serving, and then we have the frozen meals so that they have a hot meal. So there's shelf stable items in there too. So we try to put things in there that the kids like. Obviously, we're putting in nacho cheese cups with salsa with the tortillas, chips and things like that. So it's kind of a variety in there. But we've been handing out quarts of milk instead of the individual containers, and really focused on putting in, like when we're putting juice, we're putting the veggie juice in, so that they're getting less sugar and more vegetables into their diet.
Wonderful. Love that. Thank you so much, Beth. There has also been a question regarding adult meals, and if anyone has offered those, how you charge for them, if at all. And I know, Peggy, at your event I believe you had meals donated for adults, and if anyone wants to take that.
Well, we do sell adult meals about every site we go. They even ask they can purchase the extra family meals, because they see it is a value to them, because again, we're limited on grocery stores and so forth, and it's like almost, someone said it's a one stop. They can come now and get an additional meal there to extend it. But on a daily basis, if they're coming in, because we always give one hot meal when they drive up. So we did last year, it was 6 days plus that one was a hot meal that we gave them. And a lot of the darts would say, hey, and it was $4, and they just paid us at the time, and we tally that and kept it up.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Peggy. Anyone else have experience with adult meals?
On our buses, we don't typically do adult meals. The only time that we will do that is a lot of times when we do like pickups for camps and things like that. They will, they'll ask if we can send adult meals, and then they'll pay us. We'll invoice them, and they'll pay us. We have to reload a lot of times with our mobile meals. We go out once, thankfully, for the non-congregate bulk meals. But as far as actually providing those, we typically don't on in our pickup sites. But this is only this is really the first big year we've had with non-congregate, besides last year, to be able to kind of plan for that this year. So
gotcha. Awesome. Thank you. I have one other question here, and I know many questions came in about menus, and just wanted to let everyone know that in April, we will be having a menu and menu planning webinar specifically to share some pointers on menus and a variety of those, whether it's cold, hot, shelf stable, frozen, fresh, you name it. So feel free to stay in touch that way. So we probably won't touch on that one, but we did have a question come in about bulk and multi-day meals allowed on our mobile routes. And our colleague, Carolyn Vega, is going to speak to that one. Thanks, Carolyn.
Hi, thank you. I work on our policy team and typically I'm the go-to for is it allowed or is it not? And broadly speaking, yes, this should be allowed. There are currently no restrictions in the guidance for this summer on like ways of offering bulk meals or multi-day meal distribution. And that is a flexibility that states have to allow broadly for all sponsor types and can only limit on a case-by-case basis. So this could be a situation of a case-by-case limitation, just depending on what the state agency thinks about food safety protocols and other things like that on your mobile route. So if you don't have a van or a bus equipped with cold holding or something like that, and they don't know how long coolers would be keeping your meals at adequate temp, you know, they may put some limits on things like that. But broadly speaking, yes, whether you're doing delivery or mobile or a grab and go distribution, as long as you can show a good plan to your state agency, you should be able to do bulk and multi-meal distribution.
Awesome.
And I will also just add on the adult meals that broadly speaking, you cannot use any program funds to pay for adult meals that are offered to parents or other folks that are not directly involved in the meal service. So that is something that would have to be covered with private donations. It couldn't be offset by extra reimbursements or other things like that. So either, again, you're charging, and there's some guidance from the National School Lunch Program on setting prices for adult meals that would be applicable to summer meals as well. Or again, you're looking at getting private funds that will offset the cost of producing those meals.
I know Peggy has used donations as well. One other one just came in is mailing meals home allowed, like a HelloFresh type of concept?
Sure, I can take this one.
Yep.
Yes, under like a home delivery model, I believe the guidance said that could be hand delivery by sponsor staff or another delivery service or mailing. So again, would be subject to state agency approval of the specific kind of like food safety protocols involved in all of that. I feel like typically the state agency is maybe going to allow that more so for all shelf stable meals versus HelloFresh that relies on a lot of cold packs and other stuff. In addition to being subject to approval on more of a bulk style and what level of prep is involved. But just on that broad face, mailing is an allowable way of doing home delivery.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolyn. And I want to thank all of our panelists who joined us today and all of the wonderful knowledge that they were able to share. We do have a few resources, and I know that we're at time. We'll pop those up very quickly and just share those to let you know that we at No Kid Hungry have been compiling some resources and implementation guide for successful non-congregate meals, as well as a couple of success stories, one from Montana and one for South Dakota, that will be available to link through our slides that will be shared with you on our website. And as we just said, communication is key for everyone. So we want to make sure that our families are well aware of where our meals are being served and how they can get access to them. So please feel free to use our Summer Meals Outreach Toolkit with plenty of templates, customizable flyers, FAQs, and sample social media blurbs available in English and Spanish. Our No Kid Hungry texting line and free meal finder map will be available again this year, so feel free to utilize these resources as well to help families, maybe as they're traveling even this summer as well. Okay. And the best way for you to stay in touch with the latest things that are coming as far as webinars, grant opportunities, and other resources, please subscribe to our newsletter, as you'll see here, and feel free to visit our website. Also, if you are in need of any assistance, feel free to reach out through our inquiry form that will be provided and available here. You can link if you're interested in resources and potential grant funding. And of course, we appreciate your feedback. We want this to be valuable time for you to spend to learn, and we want it to mean as much to you and provide you with information that you're interested in. So feel free to fill in this 5-question survey that will pop up in your browser as we wrap things up today. And with all that being said, thank you so much for attending. We hope that you found this of value to you. And if you have questions further, feel free to reach out. Have a wonderful day, and I hope you have a very successful summer non-congregate program.